Okay, so if you create content anywhere on the internet, you already know the absolute highest hurdle isn't tricking some algorithm, right? It's getting a living, breathing human being to just stop scrolling. Today we're diving into an explainer based on a brilliant playbook that breaks down the exact science of the viral hook. We're going to look at the psychology behind why we click, why we stay, and how you can engineer that exact moment of capture every single time.
And the absolute most crucial point here, your first 30 seconds aren't killing your views. It's literally just your first 3 seconds. You could spend 10 hours writing, filming, and editing an absolute masterpiece, but the viewer's only giving you a 3-second audition. People kind of think they have half a minute to casually introduce themselves, maybe sip their coffee, warm up the crowd. But the data completely shatters that illusion. You have exactly 3 seconds to make a promise that your content is worth their most valuable asset, their time. And to put that into perspective, our collective bandwidth is shrinking faster than ever. Back in the year 2000, the average human attention span was hovering around 12 seconds. Fast forward to today, we are down to an agonizing 8 seconds. That is literally less than a goldfish, which famously clocks in at 9 seconds. We're operating in a digital environment where your viewer is actively looking for an excuse to swipe away. It's not personal, it's just biology at this point.
So, to tackle this, we're unpacking 4 core concepts from the source material today. 1. The 3-second rule. 2. The anatomy of a hook. 3. 7 psychological hook triggers. And 4. The 72-hour testing protocol.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the 3-second rule, which is really the negotiation for attention.
We need a complete mindset shift right out of the gate here. Forget polite introductions. A hook is a high-stakes negotiation for attention. Think about it. Viewers have been trained by thousands of hours of content to instantly skip the first 15 seconds if it sounds like a generic greeting. You aren't introducing yourself, you are aggressively pitching a reason for them to stay. If you don't negotiate well, poof, they leave.
And the platform you're publishing on actually dictates your survival time. On YouTube, you have that slightly more generous 3-second window to prove your worth. But step into the arena of TikTok or Instagram Reels, and that gets slashed in half to just 1.5 seconds. Blink and they're literally gone. These short-form algorithms are completely ruthless. They register a skip the moment a thumb flicks upward, which immediately tanks your overall reach.
Moving on to Section 2, the anatomy of a hook, and how we construct the perfect opener.
So what exactly is it? A hook is defined as the first sentence, the first image, or the first sound that makes a viewer decide their next move. Think of these as the storefront window of your digital real estate. These are the highest stakes 12 words in your entire script. Because they carry so much algorithmic weight, the source material argues you should literally be spending 50% of your entire writing time right here, on this single opening moment.
Let's look at an example. Generic greetings are absolute engagement killers. Opening with, "Hey guys, welcome back to my channel," creates zero urgency. There are no stakes at all. Compare that to opening with, "Your 401k is quietly stealing from your retirement. Here's the math." Wow, right? Instant tension, instant curiosity. It gives the audience a compelling reason to stay because it challenges something they previously thought was entirely safe. It forces them to completely reconsider their reality.
Which brings us to the core of today's explainer, Section 3, 7 psychological hook triggers, or the science of stopping the scroll.
Every viral hook in history leans on specific psychological pillars to hack the brain's natural tendencies. Today, we're looking at 7 core triggers: curiosity, fear, controversy, self-interest through questions, social proof through stories, surprise through shocking statistics, and the raw vulnerability of confession. Let's break down exactly how to deploy each of these distinct psychological levers.
Trigger number 1 uses curiosity. It relies on a highly effective formula. Take a known entity, add an unexpected contrast, and imply the stakes. For example, the email marketing mistake costing you $1,000 a month. This creates a severe information gap that the human brain absolutely insists on closing. Once you open that loop in a viewer's mind, they physically want to watch the rest of the content just to find the answer.
Trigger number 2 leverages fear, specifically the fear of missing out. Warning a viewer of a painful consequence drives a massive 35% higher click-through rate compared to standard hooks, especially in high-stakes niches like finance, health, and tech. A hook like, "Warning, the AI tool your competitors are using while you're still working manually," creates an immediate, visceral threat. The perceived cost of inaction is just way too high for the viewer to ignore.
Moving on to trigger number 3, controversy. Stating something safe like, the 4% rule is a common retirement strategy, puts people right to sleep. But claiming, the 4% rule is dead, here's what to do instead, entirely disrupts the norm. People will stick around out of either eager agreement or productive disagreement. And because human beings absolutely love to argue, controversial hooks can double your comment section, signaling massively positive engagement to the algorithm.
Trigger number 4 taps directly into self-interest by using a highly targeted question. The goal here is to ask a question the viewer desperately wants answered for their own personal benefit, but cannot answer themselves without watching. When you ask, what would you do with an extra $1,000 per month, the viewer instantly starts imagining their own life, their own desires. You've actively engaged their brain before you've even started the main lesson.
Trigger number 5 uses the power of story to tap into relatable social proof. Believe it or not, leading with a strong narrative arc generates a 40% higher retention rate because human beings are deeply biologically hardwired to follow a journey. We forget dry facts, but we remember transformations. A hook like, 6 months ago I had $0, here's exactly what changed, immediately pulls people in because they want to experience that identical transformation for themselves.
Trigger number 6 uses a shocking statistic to leverage the element of surprise. Saying something like, 73% of people making over $100,000 live paycheck to paycheck completely shatters common assumptions. It builds instant, concrete credibility. That specific number, 73%, is so much more powerful and magnetic than a vague, sweeping statement like, most people struggle with money. It commands attention because the surprise forces the brain to literally pause and process.
Finally, trigger number 7 is the confession. In a digital world entirely saturated with polished, heavily filtered perfection, admitting a flaw acts like a beacon of absolute authenticity. Saying, I've been making this money mistake for 10 years and I'm embarrassed to admit it, completely disarms the viewer. It makes them feel like they are getting exclusive, honest access behind the scenes. That magnetic vulnerability yields the absolute highest viewer trust scores of any strategy.
All right, bringing it home with Section 4, the 72-hour testing protocol, moving from guesswork to hard data.
This incredibly efficient 72-hour testing protocol ensures you only bring proven data-backed openings to your highest effort content. Here's the exact system. Step 1. Post 3 short pieces of content covering the exact same topic, but using 3 completely different psychological hooks we just talked about. Step 2. Measure the 3-second completion rate in your analytics. Step 3. Use whichever hook kept the most people watching for your main long-form content. This protocol completely removes the emotional attachment from your writing and lets actual audience behavior decide.
The author of our source material actually formalizes all of this knowledge into a massive, comprehensive playbook, which is exactly how the top 1% of professional creators operate. They aren't waking up, staring at a blank page, and hoping inspiration magically strikes. No way. They are utilizing a systematized library of proven templates based entirely on these psychological triggers. They do this to guarantee that they capture and hold attention every single time they hit publish.
So, you now have the anatomy of a hook, the 7 psychological triggers, and the 72-hour testing protocol to back it all up with hard data. The clock on your viewer's attention starts the absolute millisecond they see your content. The power is completely in your hands now. So I leave you with this. When you sit down to create tomorrow, which of these psychological triggers will you trust to buy you more time?